What's happening in Sudan? You might be wondering what's happening in Sudan. You might be wondering why the streets are filled with violence and bloodshed. You might be wondering why the people are suffering. Since the 2021 coup, Sudan has been run by a council of generals, led by the two military men at the center of this dispute. The conflict appears to be around the control of key installations, but much of it is happening in urban areas, and civilians have become the unwitting victims. Several ceasefires have been announced to allow people to escape the fighting, but these have not been observed. There are suspicions that both generals want to hang on to their positions of power, unwilling to lose the wealth and influence that go with them. These two men, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and General Mohamed hamdan Dagalo, are at the center of the dispute. Al-Burhan is the head of the armed forces and effectively the country's president. Dagalo, better known as Hamdan, is his deputy and the leader of the RSF. The two have been unable to agree on the direction the country is taking, particularly when it comes to plans for civilian rule. The main sticking points between the two leaders are the plans to include the 100,000-strong RSF into the army, and who would then lead the new force. This has led to protests and unrest in Sudan, with many civilians calling for an end to military rule. The civilians want civilian rule. They don't want the military in charge anymore. They're living in a war zone. It's not safe to go outside. Despite initial hopes that talks could resolve the situation, fighting soon escalated in different parts of the country. It's not clear who fired the first shot, but according to the World Health Organization, more than 400 civilians have died as a result of the conflict. The conflict in Sudan appears to be centered around the control of key installations, but much of the fighting is taking place in urban areas, with civilians becoming the unwitting victims. It's not exactly clear where the RSF bases are, but it seems that their fighters have moved into densely populated areas. The Sudanese Air Force has mounted airstrikes in the capital, a city of more than 6 million people. Unfortunately, it's likely that there have been civilian casualties as a result. Several ceasefires have been announced in an attempt to allow people to escape the fighting, but unfortunately, these have not been observed. Despite a framework deal being agreed last December to return power to civilians, talks to finalize the details have failed. General Dagalo has stated that he and the RSF are fighting for the people of Sudan to ensure democratic progress, but many find this message hard to believe given the brutal track record of the RSF, while General Burhan has said that he supports the idea of returning to civilian rule. He's also stated that he'll only hand over power to an elected government. There are suspicions that both generals want to hang on to their positions of power, unwilling to lose the wealth and influence that go with them. There are fears that the fighting could further fragment the country, worsen political turbulence, and draw in neighboring states. Diplomats have been trying to find a way to get the two generals to talk, and a regional bloc agreed to send 3 presidents to Khartoum, but the mission never happened. The UK, US, and EU have all called for a ceasefire and talks to resolve the crisis. Many countries are now focused on trying to get their citizens out of Sudan. We'll continue to bring you updates on this developing story. It's difficult to predict the future of Sudan, given the ongoing conflict and political turmoil. The rivalry between General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and General Mohamed hamdan Dagalo has intensified, and talks to finalize details for a framework deal to put power back in the hands of civilians have failed. The situation in Sudan is a tragic one, with civilians caught in the crossfire. We'll continue to bring you updates on this story as it develops.